She's made the decision or she's close to making it. And somewhere in the confusion and anger and grief of watching her leave, or preparing to leave, you've found yourself imagining what comes next for her. Not because you're vindictive, but because the mind seeks patterns, seeks narratives that make sense of pain, seeks some prediction of the future that might offer comfort or at least clarity. You want to know if she'll regret it, if she'll realize what she lost, if the life she's walking toward will teach her that what you offered was actually valuable, that the problems she's leaving were solvable, that walking away was a mistake she'll spend years trying to undo. The truth is harder and more complicated than either the revenge fantasy or the reconciliation hope, because what awaits her isn't punishment or enlightenment or some clear vindication of either her choice or your value. What awaits her is the continuation of her own becoming, the unfolding of a life that may or may not include regret, but will certainly include growth, difficulty, new relationships, new patterns, and the slow discovery of whether leaving was escape or liberation, whether she was running from something broken or towards something necessary for her own evolution. Most men construct one of two narratives when a woman leaves. Either she'll struggle and realize her mistake, finding that every new man disappoints in ways you never did, that independence isn't what she imagined, that she gave up something irreplaceable for a fantasy that can't deliver, or she'll thrive immediately, finding someone better, someone who gives her everything you couldn't, proving that you were the problem and her leaving was the smartest decision she ever made. Both narratives are self-centered, because both make her future about you, about validating your worth or confirming your inadequacy, when her future is actually about her, about what she needs to learn that couldn't be learned while staying, about who she's becoming that couldn't emerge within the container of what you built together. She will struggle, but not necessarily in the ways you imagine. The struggle won't be about missing what you provided, security, companionship, the life you built, at least not primarily. The struggle will be about confronting the parts of herself she could avoid while being partnered, the decisions she could defer, the work she didn't have to do when relationship maintenance consumed her energy and attention. She'll face loneliness that has nothing to do with your absence and everything to do with her relationship with herself, the gaps that were always there but got filled with the noise of couplehood, the questions she'll finally have to answer without the buffer of your presence. She'll also experience relief, probably sooner than you'd like to admit, probably more profound than seems fair given what you shared. Not relief that you're gone specifically, but relief that the particular tension of being in a relationship that no longer served her growth has ended. Relief from the exhausting performance of trying to make something work that both of you knew wasn't working, even if neither could name it directly. Relief from the slow suffocation of being partnered to someone she could no longer reach, or who could no longer reach her, regardless of whose fault that was, or whether fault even matters. Jung understood that every relationship serves as a mirror, reflecting back aspects of ourselves we can't see directly, and when the relationship ends, the mirror shatters, forcing us to construct new ways of seeing ourselves without the reflection we'd grown dependent on. For her, your absence won't just be the loss of your presence, it will be the loss of the identity she constructed as your partner, the roles she played, the version of herself that existed in relation to you. She'll have to discover who she is when she's not managing your moods, not accommodating your preferences, not compromising her needs to maintain relational peace, not defining herself against or in support of your vision of what life should be. What most men don't want to hear is that she might actually become more herself without you. Not because you were actively suppressing her, but because the particular chemistry of your combination created dynamics that limited both of you in ways neither fully recognized while together. She might discover interests she'd minimized because they didn't fit the life you were building, friendships she'd let atrophy because they threatened the couple bubble you maintained, aspects of her personality that got compressed because they created friction within your particular partnership. This isn't about you being bad for her. It's about the simple reality that every relationship shapes both people, and sometimes the shape it creates is smaller than what either person needs to become. She will date again, probably sooner than feels comfortable for you to imagine, and the men she encounters will be different from you in ways that feel deliberately chosen. Not necessarily better, not necessarily worse, but different, offering qualities you didn't offer, lacking qualities you possessed, triggering different parts of her, calling forth different versions of herself. Some of those relationships will be disasters, rebounds that teach her what she doesn't want, repetitions of old patterns wearing new faces. Some will be meaningful, even if temporary, helping her understand herself better, showing her possibilities she couldn't see while with you, offering experiences that expand rather than contract her sense of what's possible. And yes, eventually she might find someone she considers better suited to who she's becoming or who she's always been, but couldn't fully express with you. This doesn't invalidate what you shared. It just acknowledges that compatibility is context-dependent, that people need different things at different stages, that the partner who serves someone's growth at 25 might not serve it at 35, that love alone isn't sufficient when the fundamental trajectories diverge, when what one person needs to become requires conditions the other can't or won't provide. Fromm wrote about love as an art requiring practice, knowledge, effort. Not something that happens to you, but something you create through continuous choice and attention. The relationship you had with her was one iteration of that practice, and whatever relationships she builds next will be others, informed by what she learned with you, shaped by the ways you both succeeded and failed at creating intimacy, marked by the patterns you established together and the patterns she's determined not to repeat. She takes you with her in that sense, not as a memory she cherishes or a mistake she regrets, but as part of her relational education, one chapter in the ongoing story of how she learns to love and be loved. The question that haunts most men after a woman leaves is whether she'll realize what she lost, whether time and distance will reveal that what you offered was actually rare and valuable, that the problems that drove her away were fixable, that leaving was premature. Sometimes that realization comes, months or years later. She might recognize that the issues weren't as insurmountable as they felt, that her expectations were unrealistic, that the grass wasn't actually greener, that what you provided mattered more than she appreciated while having it. But even when that recognition comes, it rarely leads where you hope it leads, because recognizing value in hindsight doesn't undo the reasons for leaving, doesn't resolve the fundamental incompatibilities, doesn't restore the timing or chemistry or willingness that's required for relationship to work. More often, what she realizes isn't that leaving was wrong, but that staying would have been worse. Not because you were terrible, but because the trajectory you were on together was leading somewhere she didn't want to go, because the version of herself that existed with you was narrower than the version she needed to become, because the choice wasn't between you and nothing, but between you and the possibility of something more aligned with her evolving values, needs, and vision for her life. That realization won't feel like vindication to you because it doesn't validate your worth. It just confirms that worth isn't the issue, that sometimes incompatibility is no one's fault, that two good people can be wrong for each other without either being deficient. She'll carry guilt, probably more than you imagine, especially if she was the one who initiated the ending, especially if she hurt you in ways she never intended, especially if part of her still cares, even though caring isn't enough to sustain relationship. The guilt will surface at unexpected moments, when she's happy with someone new and remembers you're probably not, when she achieves something she knows you would have celebrated, when she realizes how much of your life was organized around her and wonders what you're doing with all that suddenly empty space. The guilt doesn't mean she made the wrong choice. It just means she's human, capable of holding multiple truths, that leaving was necessary and that leaving caused pain, that she needed to go and that she wishes it could have been different, that she doesn't want you back and she doesn't want you suffering. What awaits her ultimately is exactly what awaits everyone who makes a major life transition. Uncertainty, growth, difficulty, discovery, the slow revelation of whether the leap led somewhere better or just somewhere different, the ongoing work of building a life that feels authentic rather than inherited or defaulted into. She won't be punished for leaving and she won't be rewarded for leaving. She'll just be living, making new choices that create new consequences, learning new lessons that replace or build on old ones, becoming whoever she becomes through the accumulated experience of choosing herself, even when choosing herself meant walking away from someone who loved her. The narrative you construct about her future says more about you than it does about her. Whether you need her to fail to validate your worth or succeed to confirm your inadequacy. Whether you can hold space for the possibility that her life continues in ways that have nothing to do with you. That her happiness or suffering won't retroactively determine whether what you built together mattered. Whether you can let her be a full human being whose choices belong to her, even when those choices break. Your heart. She's not your mirror anymore, not your responsibility, not your project or your proof or your punishment. She's just a person who shared part of your life, and then chose to share a different part of her life with different people or with herself alone. And what awaits her is the same thing that awaits you, the opportunity to learn from what ended, to integrate the lessons, to build something new from the materials of loss and possibility, to discover whether the pain of ending creates space for something more aligned with who she's becoming, or just creates pain that eventually dulls into acceptance. Let her go, not with bitterness or hope or the need to know how her story ends, but with the recognition that her story isn't yours to narrate anymore, that what she finds or doesn't find won't change what you shared or didn't share, won't make the ending right or wrong, won't give you the closure you're seeking, because closure doesn't come from her future. It comes from your own integration of the past, your own willingness to let what was be complete without needing it to predict or determine. What comes next? What awaits her is her life. What awaits you is yours. The intersection is over, and what each of you builds from here belongs to each of you separately, and that's not tragedy or victory. It's just the continuation of becoming, the ongoing work of being human, the reality that sometimes people who matter deeply to each other still can't walk the same path without both getting lost.